Well, there is a lot to digest from the weekend of football, so we're going to be going through all the matches from round 10 of the AFL 2025 season. Right now, stick around. Hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. This is the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. Enjoy. Welcome on in to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode number 32 for season 2025. And today, we're going to be reviewing all of the round 10 matchups from the weekend. There was 9 matches. We're going to be going through each and every one of them. We'll be looking at the best players, the best teams, what went right, what went wrong, and everything in between. So make sure you hit that follow button, subscribe button, depending what platform you are on. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to leave a comment. And also, if you do enjoy the content, make sure you share it with your friends and family. Let's jump into it. It's All Aussie Rules. It's round 10. Let's have a look at it. So, jumping straight into the games. There's no need to muck around. Let's jump into them. Thursday night football was a cracker. Looked a good one on paper. Gold Coast Hawthorn up at TIO Stadium in Darwin. And it lived up to the hype, in all honesty. It was a fascinating game. Mainly because Gold Coast got out early and looked like they were going to run away with this one. That's not how it ended up going. Hawthorn fought their way back in. I mean, they were never more than about 4-ish goals behind. But it's certainly early stages of that second quarter. It actually got just over 5 goals in front, did the Suns, and it looked semi-dangerous, but the Hawks did kick the last 3 of the second quarter to get them back within 14 points right before half-time. And then most of the way through the second half, it was a real arm wrestle. Hawthorn did hit the front just before three-quarter time. But Gold Coast did enough in that last quarter to win this game. It was a good game, though. It was entertaining. As you can probably see, if you are watching the video version of this podcast, I have upgraded the graphics to show a little bit more information, my MVP votes, my Brownlow votes for the matches. So in this one, the winning team, Gold Coast, their MVP votes went to Noah Anderson, Matt Rao, Bailey Humphrey, Jared Witts, and Doc Miller. Unlucky John Noble with 36 touches didn't actually rate in the top 5 players for Gold Coast, which is crazy. He was very, very good though, and he has been playing very well over the last 3 or 4 weeks. On the other side of the fence for Hawthorn, their best 5, Jai Newcomb was clearly their best player. He gets the 5. Carl Lamon, Harry Morrison, Blake Hardwick, and Jack Ginnivan snuck in for a 1 vote. So that's how that went. Brownlow votes, Noah Anderson was clear best on ground in my opinion. He gets the 3. Jai Newcomb gets 2. I've gone John Noble 1. That could also go to Matt Rao, potentially. Probably the most likely one to challenge Noble for that 1 vote. And yeah, that's that, I guess. Pretty tight, even contest across the stats mostly. Gold Coast did dominate stoppages. Hawthorn did dominate... well, not dominate, but did win turnover games. So that's basically the only difference. End up inside 50s being dead level. Obviously, being up at Darwin, it was a slippery game, high turnover game. Both teams above average in turnovers. So you kind of expect that in Darwin football most of the time. Expected score-wise, Hawthorn actually probably rated higher in this one. Even though both teams look accurate on paper, 16-8 to 15-6, Hawthorn actually had more shots at goal than Gold Coast did. Ended up with 26 shots to Gold Coast 23. Ends up with Hawthorn on most expected score tallies ending up slightly in front. If you look at the team ratings on the screen, it does have Gold Coast well in advance here. A lot to do with clearances and a few other things. Score sources, another thing that we always look at here on the podcast. Pretty level across the board. Stoppages Gold Coast did dominate the stoppage game, only won the scoring by 9 points thanks to some accuracy. Turnovers, though, Hawthorn forced the more interceptions here, but scored less and had less shots, or less scores, I should say. They kicked 8 straight, Hawthorn, whereas Gold Coast kicked 8-5 from less turnovers or interceptions, sorry. So that's a really good performance from Gold Coast in that regard, to stop the scoring off their own turnovers, but also capitalise on scoring from their intercepts. Gold Coast did it from the back line. Hawthorn did it from the forward half. Both teams pretty similar from centre bounce. That's basically the long and the short of this one. What does it mean for both teams? Gold Coast probably do play up there really well. They only just won both games. Ends up being 10 points for both of them, I think. They beat Bulldogs, obviously, the week before. They're in a great spot. In all honesty, they're looking really, really good at the moment. They're getting wins, which is what you need to do this time of year. It allows them to really find their form, I guess, and get their players fit and healthy and peaking at the right time of the year, because they already have 7 wins from 9 games. You'd think 6 more wins from their remaining 14 is probably going to be enough to play finals. That's not a difficult task. I mean, no game's easy, but you'd think, based on what we've seen, they should be almost locking in finals pretty early. And if they can get the right form going into finals, who knows what could happen. It's going to be an interesting one for sure, but I think, they'll be very happy with where they are. Hawthorn, on the other hand, look, it's not doom and gloom. They're definitely not flying at the minute, but they're going well enough. They're still sitting 4th on the ladder. They have, 7 wins, 3 losses now. It's not terrible. It's a pretty good spot to be in all honesty. They're still top 4 at the moment. They're a game ahead of Bulldogs in 5th. And they're only 1 win plus a little bit of percentage behind Collingwood for top spot. That's going to be a huge game coming up in a couple weeks. So watch out for that one. Hawthorn have a good record against Collingwood as well. Looking towards this weekend, though, Hawthorn plays 2nd on the ladder, Brisbane Lions, at the MCG. Brisbane's struggling for form at the moment, so that will be a big opportunity for Hawthorn. Meanwhile, Gold Coast, they're heading down to Marvel Stadium as well. So both Queensland teams heading down to Melbourne this weekend. They're playing St Kilda, who also are in a world of hurt at the moment. So a really good opportunity for Gold Coast to get one back after losing their previous game at Marvel Stadium when they went up against Richmond. So they really probably want to stamp this game as a win. I mean, you want to stamp every game as a win, but this one, I think, means a little bit more because they were, we'll say, certainly had their colours lowered last time they were at Marvel Stadium. That's probably everything we need for Game 1 from the weekend. We'll head into Friday night football, and it was Sydney hosting Carlton at the SCG. Both teams really needing a win. Sydney more so than Carlton, but in the end, Sydney were the ones that walked away with it. It was tight most of the way through, within 2 kicks pretty much the whole night. Carlton still leading at 3/4 time, but then early in the 4th, Sydney got a couple, and then they got a couple late as well, just to extend it out to I won't say comfortable, but an okay-ish margin of 16 points to finish it. They certainly needed this win, did the Swans, and they did get it, just to breathe a little bit of, I guess, belief back into their system. Votes-wise, MVP, you'll see Brodie Grundy got the 10, Chad Warner 8, Isaac Heaney 6, we'll come back to him in a minute, Justin McInerney 4, Will Hayward 2 for Carlton. It went Paddy Cripps 5, George Hewitt 4, Adam Chera 3, Nick Haynes 2, Charlie Curnow with 1. Brownlow votes, Isaac Heaney gets 3, Chera gets 2, Chad Warner gets 1. Plenty of other players could get votes here, including maybe Grundy for 1. Paddy Cripps could get 3, 2, 1 or 0 in this game. Who knows what the umpires will see. He was very good in the first half, bit quieter in the second. George Hewitt's had a fantastic season. He could certainly get votes as well. You might question why Isaac Heaney gets only 6 votes in MVP, but I've got him for 3 Brownlow votes. I think the umpires would be definitely noticing Isaac Heaney the most on the weekend, so I think he does get the 3 votes. He had 38 touches and like 7 shots at goal. He could have had one of the all-time games that we've ever seen, or certainly in the modern era. Kicked poorly in front of goal. And yeah, some stats just don't tally well. The MVP fully comes from my rating system. Sometimes there's going to be anomalies where a player rates a little bit lower due to turnovers or due to poor disposal or some other factors. I still think Isaac Heaney was best player on the ground. He certainly would have been if he had a kick straight, but I still think he was. But it just doesn't wrap up that way in the MVP voting. Brodie Grundy, Chad Warner were also very good. So nothing taken away from them from me. In terms of shots at goal, Sydney had more, 27 to 22. So as you'd expect, comes up as expected winners. Not completely different game than the Thursday night game. Thursday night game was one that I would recommend watching. It was a good game. It was entertaining from start to finish. This one, it was close most of the way through. Skills probably a little bit lower. Some finishing abilities not quite as good. And it was still, I enjoyed watching it, but I'm a football tragic. Will everyone enjoy it? Probably not. It's a very weird game in that, yeah, across the board, it just kind of felt like the finishing on both sides. Just lacking where they were at this point last year. Some of the stats from this one, similar inside 50 numbers. Both teams, Carlton actually won it by 1, but pretty close. Clearance game went the way of Sydney massively, both centre clearances and stoppage clearances. Turnover game was very high, as I said, 75 for Sydney, which is plus 8 on their average, 73 for Carlton, which is plus 10 on their average. So just tells you where this kind of game was. It was very, I won't say messy, but certainly wasn't clean, with both teams failing to capitalise at times. Where did their scoring come from in this one? Very similarly in stoppage scoring, even though Sydney did win that area of the game. And likewise, even though Sydney lost the turnover count in this game, they did dominate scoring from turnover, and that is 100% the difference here. 7 goals, 9, 51. Could have been even worse for Carlton. To just 5 goals, 3, 33. Carlton did not manage to turn the opposition turnovers into scoring at all this game. Just 5 goals, 3 from, 79 interceptions is not very good scoring. It's very, very low. And it just shows you where maybe Carlton are at and lacking at the moment. They're just not punishing teams as much as they should be or are capable of. Around the ground, it was pretty similar. Both teams scored 36 from the forward half. Sydney slightly better from the back half, which usually they are a pretty good transition team, but still pretty low for them. Overall, though, it's just a story of wasted opportunities and not having that final kick into the 50 or that final little chain to get you a good opportunity at goal. And Carlton just kind of lacked that in this one, I think. Or certainly have over the last couple of weeks, maybe all season. Looking forward, this puts both teams at 4 wins, 6 losses. Carlton slightly ahead due to the better percentage. They do have a good percentage, but that's thanks mainly to their floggings of a couple of the lower ranked teams. So it puts both teams basically in the same spot after 10 weeks. still within range. They're only 1 win and percentage outside of the 8th, so neither team is done by any stretch of the imagination. But the next few weeks are very important to get some wins on the board, get some confidence, get some belief in the system that they can still challenge. The ladder is very interestingly poised at the moment, and these two teams are two of the ones that are close enough to challenge some of these teams that are falling back above them, mainly speaking like GWS. But there's also teams below them, same amount of wins, but lower on percentage, that are certainly challenging in Melbourne. So it will be a fascinating 4 or 5 weeks over coming up around the bye period to see where teams actually shape up. Once all these buys are done, will be certainly fascinating. Sydney this week coming have a really tough challenge. They've got Melbourne at the MCG on Sunday afternoon. As I said, Melbourne are playing some really good football at the moment, so this will be a crucial matchup for them. Will they be able to continue trying to push up towards finals, or do Melbourne do that? It's going to be fascinating. Massive game for both teams. Meanwhile, Carlton, they have a Saturday afternoon game at home at Marvel Stadium against GWS. This is going to be an interesting one as well, because GWS have a decent record against Carlton. However, they were poor. There's no other way to say it on the weekend. We'll get to that game very shortly. But it's a almost do or die game for Carlton. And if they win it, they will jump above GWS. And meanwhile, GWS don't win this one. They start to fall out of range of the top 8 and really need to find some form. So just an interesting spot for that game, or both of those games, this coming weekend. All 4 teams within a game of each other going into the weekend. So fascinating games coming up this weekend. I think that's everything we have for the Friday night game. We'll move into Saturday. It was Collingwood Adelaide at the MCG, and it was a good game. It poured down with rain, absolutely bucketed. But the history of this matchup continued. Collingwood have a very good record over Adelaide. They've won now 10 in a row, with the one before that being a draw. It's one of the longest win streaks in the competition at the moment, and Collingwood just seem to have the wood, and a lot of them have been close games under a kick. This one nearly ended up being under a kick as well. Rankin had a shot after the siren from about 60, but didn't make the distance. But Collingwood just continually get the win over them. I don't know what it is. They win at 11-12, 78 to 10-8, 68. Both teams will think they had their chances in this. And both teams will probably think, well, Collingwood will be happy they got the win, but Adelaide will certainly think that they could have won this one. MVP votes, Jeremy Howe was fantastic down back. He gets the 10. 8 to Josh Dacos, 6 to Braden Maynard. What do those 3 players have in common? They're all backline players. It tells you where Collingwood won this game. Steel side bottom 4, Darcy Cameron 2. Over on the Adelaide side of the fence, Jordan Dawson was absolutely huge in this one. He gets 5. Saligo 4, Riley O'Brien 3, Rory Laird 2, Isaac Rankin gets the 1. Brownlow votes, I think Jordan Dawson gets the 3. He was best on ground in my opinion. Josh Dacos gets 2, Jeremy Howe gets 1. There's plenty of other players that could get the votes. I think Dawson should get the 3. I think Dacos probably gets the 2, Josh Dacos that is. And then there's a whole range of players that could be getting 1. Rankin, Saligo, side bottom, Maynard, Nick Dacos could get a vote just because umpires love him. He did have 20 odd touches. I just don't think he was damaging enough in this game. It kind of was an arm wrestle most of the way through. Collingwood led for a fair chunk of it, and late in the third quarter, got a few goals, including one after the siren, that just gave them that little edge of 16 points going into three-quarter time. They then managed the first goal of the fourth. Adelaide absolutely peppered the whole last quarter into that forward 50 and almost broke the game open, but Collingwood's defence just held strong. Like they did pretty much most of the way through this game. In the end, Collingwood held on for the win, and basically they'll be happy with that. I think Adelaide put up a fight but just couldn't get there. Did the rain help Collingwood more than it did Adelaide? Maybe. Both teams have won in the rain this year already, so I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Looking at shots, both teams had 25 shots for the day. Adelaide obviously turning that into 10 goals 8, whereas Collingwood did get 11 goals 12, so slightly more scores. Adelaide did have multiple out on the fulls. Collingwood obviously did have the more behinds in the game though. Turns out expected scores, most expected score things have Collingwood slightly ahead by about that 5-point margin, so I think Collingwood are the probable winners most times in this matchup, looking at the stats and the numbers, and they did get that in this one. Inaccuracy certainly hurt both teams. Looking at scoring, Adelaide actually managed 2 goals straight from kick-ins, which is a really good effort, especially against Collingwood, who don't allow you to transition the ball too well. But when you do break them open, you can score. You see what GWS did to them in opening round. That is the blueprint for scoring against Collingwood. It's catching them off guard slightly. If you can break them open, you will score. And that's what they did. Whereas Collingwood still managed 1 goal 1 and probably should have been 2 straight. They missed an easy one. Moving into some of the stats, and as we compare that into scoring, Adelaide actually ended up with more inside 50s. It was they were always ahead most of the day, but Collingwood kept bringing it back, and it was pretty level. But then that last quarter, Adelaide did certainly dominate the inside 50s. And clearances was a weird one. Collingwood led clearances in the first half, but Adelaide absolutely dominated clearances second half. Ended up plus 10 in clearance numbers. What did they convert that into scoring-wise? 1 goal 7 for Adelaide. Could have been huge if they were a little bit more effective with their scoring from stoppage. Meanwhile, Collingwood, though, they obviously didn't win clearances, but kicked 0-4. So both teams inaccurate in that version of the game. Whereas you go into the turnover game, and it was a wet game, so there was a high number of turnovers. Collingwood had 74, which is plus about 13, 12 on their average, whereas Adelaide had a massive 89 turnovers in this game, which is plus 22. What did both teams manage to turn that into scoring-wise? Obviously, Collingwood had a massive amount of intercepts in this game. They turned it into 10 goals 7-67, which is pretty good return in all honesty. 17 shots, 67 scores. That's where they did a bulk of their scoring in this game, obviously scoring only 4 points from stoppage. Whereas Adelaide, who had slightly less intercepts, obviously about 74, turned it into really accurate kicking, which is the opposite of what they did from stoppage. They kicked 7-1, so really efficient, but scored 4 goals less in the end than Collingwood from turnover, and that's the difference in this game. Defensive half scoring ends up being similar, 36-37 in favour of Collingwood, but Collingwood very inaccurately 5-7. Forward half scoring 4-4 for Adelaide, 6-3 for Collingwood. So once again, as most weeks have happened this year, Collingwood scoring from that forward half. Very good, outscoring the opposition most weeks in that regard. Centre bounce, both teams failed in that area. 0-4 for Adelaide, could have been really good. And Collingwood 0-2. So that's a sum up of this game. Tackle count 59-53, both teams roughly around their average. Collingwood's tackle numbers in the first quarter were atrocious, but they soon turned that around. I think they had 6 in the first quarter. Managed to get 53 for the rest of the game, so certainly upped it from that point. No doubt about that. Where these two teams stand right now, Collingwood on top of the ladder, they would be stoked. Obviously, Brisbane losing on the weekend puts them on top. Obviously, Gold Coast have played one less game than them, so you can kind of consider Gold Coast on top of them, depending obviously what happens. But, you know, they have played one less game, so you got to feel like they are there. But Collingwood would certainly be happy with where they are. 8-2, certainly after losing their first game. They're well ahead of where they were this time last year. They were into the 8 roughly. They were sitting at the bottom of the 8, I think, at this point last year. So yeah, they'd be very happy. Meanwhile, Adelaide, they're looking a lot better than they were this time last year. They had a slow start to the year, never really got themselves going, whereas this year, they're 6-4, so they're above 500. Probably lost a couple more games than they would have liked, ideally, in a perfect world, but they're still in a really strong commanding position with their percentage, and with 6 wins, and building themselves to a point where they can really take over and push towards a top 4 position, which is where they have to be aiming for this year, I think. Collingwood this weekend, they have a Marvel Stadium game against North Melbourne, which will be a huge game. If you go back 12 months, these two teams met on a Sunday afternoon at Marvel Stadium, similar time of the year. And if you think back to that game, most people will remember it. Collingwood were lucky to win it. Umpiring decision late did go their way, but they were also like 50-something points behind in the third quarter and came back and won it somehow against all odds. So that will be an interesting one to see how that one washes up. Meanwhile, Adelaide also have a team that they played similar time last year, I think, at Adelaide Oval as well. They played West Coast, and they won it by 100 and something points. And it was a game where last year you saw that and you were like, maybe Adelaide can make a charge this season still. That was short-lived. You'd have to think, I know West Coast are coming off a win, but you'd have to think that this is a massive opportunity for Adelaide to win big and really boost that percentage. So both teams will be going in favourites. Obviously, Collingwood first versus 17th, whereas Adelaide, they're sitting 6th on the ladder, playing 18th on the ladder. So both teams massive favourites going into this weekend and a really big chance to stamp themselves heading into this bye period as genuine contenders for the season. Moving on to the next game, it was GWS Fremantle. This one was a home game for GWS at NG Stadium, and who saw this one coming? In the end, the Giants lose it by 34 points against Fremantle, and in all honesty, they didn't really look in this game all that much. 8-13-61, so some inaccurate kicking there, but Fremantle also kicked very poorly. 13-17-95. MVP votes for the winning team. I've gone Bolton 10, Luke Jackson 8, Sarong 6, Frederick 4, Jordan Clark 2 on the other side of the fence. Tom Green 5, Connor Iden 4, he was fantastic. Kieran Briggs 3, Jack Buckley 2, Finn Callahan with 1. Brownlow votes should be dominated by Fremantle. I think Bolton clearly gets the 3. I think Sarong probably gets the 2. The 1 vote could go to Brayshaw. I've gone Brayshaw, but it could also go to Luke Jackson. It could go to Frederick. It could go to Clark. Could go to a whole handful of players, mainly from Fremantle. Maybe Tom Green gets 1 vote, but I think probably goes to Andrew Brayshaw, maybe. First half, I mean, it wasn't a domination by Fremantle, but they were 11 points up at half-time, having had kicked 5 goals 10, whereas GWS were actually pretty accurate in that first half, kicking 4 goals 5. Could have been a bigger margin for Fremantle at half-time. But the third quarter was all one-way traffic. 3 goals, 5 for Fremantle to 0 goals, 5 for GWS. Put them kind of to the sword. 29 points up at three-quarter time. Fremantle then kicked the first 3 goals of the last quarter to seal the game. At that point, whatever that is, 8 goals up with under a quarter to go. GWS did manage to finally start kicking some goals late, but it was way too little too late. Ended up being a 34-point win in favour of the Dockers, who get a much-needed win after a couple rough games in a row. Meanwhile, GWS, I don't know what to make of them this season. I've kind of been that way most of this year and also last year as well. Every now and then they just play some games where you're like, are they that good? But then they also play games where, like against Collingwood, where they absolutely tear them apart, and you're like, well, yes, they are that good. So I still don't know what to make of them. If you can explain it to me, feel free to in the comments, because I'm at a loss at the moment with GWS. Look at some of the stats in this one. Most numbers kind of favour Fremantle, plus 11 inside 50s for Fremantle. GWS, who are a high possession team, they even when they're losing games, they typically do outpossess the opposition. Not this time. Plus 14 for Fremantle. So that tells you where GWS went wrong. Not necessarily not getting their hands on the ball, but they just didn't play GWS football here. They got absolutely torn apart by Fremantle. No doubt about it. Clearance game is not GWS's strong suit, I don't think. It hasn't been last year. This year, probably slightly more so than last year. They've been all right in clearance game, but Fremantle did tear them apart here. Plus 11, plus 7 in centre clearances. So domination there. Contested football went the way of Freo. Turnover numbers, both teams were below average. Ends up being Fremantle winning that area by 1, but very, very low turnover game, which is pretty much the opposite to most other games on the weekend. Fremantle just the better team, I think, in the end. We've probably been going through these games too slowly at the moment. I'll try and speed it up in a way. Scoring from this one, obviously, expected score clearly has Fremantle winning it. Not by as much as they did, but certainly still comfortably winning it. 31 shots to 22 in favour of Fremantle. So, yeah, expected winners, Fremantle. Scoring from stoppage, we know Fremantle did dominate the stoppages in this game, and they dominated the scoring as well, 37 to 11. Scoring from turnover as well, they dominated. Well, not dominated, but 58 to 48. The turnover numbers were similar, so they did convert better from turnovers, did the Dockers. They transitioned well from the back line, which is usually GWS's best form of the game. 51 to 42, though, in favour of Fremantle. So they really stopped that transition scoring from the back line that GWS is so good at all year long. And from forward half, 3 goals 11 for Fremantle. Could have been even worse this game. Whereas GWS also kicked poorly from that forward half. 1 goal 6-12. So yeah, that's that. We'll have a look at what that means for both teams. GWS now sitting 8th on the ladder. Fremantle 9th on the ladder. Both teams at 5 and 5. GWS slightly better percentage. I don't know where they are, either of these teams. Both teams have had a weird sort of little period recently. I guess hopefully we'll learn a bit more over the coming weeks. I think GWS's best is still certainly good enough to compete with anyone. Unfortunately, their worst has shown up a few times over the last month, and it's starting to concern me a little bit. Fremantle, kind of similar. Their best is good. Unfortunately, their worst is also bad. They've played a couple stinking games on the road this year. This week, they travelled really well. Who knows what we make of that. moving forward to this weekend, GWS, as we mentioned before, they are playing Carlton at Marvel Stadium. Huge game for them. They kind of really want to win. They lose this one, they will drop out of the 8 almost certainly. They would probably drop 3 or 4 spots depending on results below them. Maybe only 1 or 2 spots, but their season starts to get out of hand if they keep losing. Meanwhile, Fremantle, they have a huge game against Port Adelaide at home. If you think back to late last year, Fremantle did play Port Adelaide in the final round. All they needed to do was win that game and they would have played finals last year. They couldn't get the job done. They lost it. Different Port Adelaide this year, no doubt about it. But will there be wounds there? We'll find out Saturday night. That'll be an interesting game to watch. You'd have to think based on what we've seen this weekend, Fremantle will definitely win that. But I just don't know what to make of them at the moment, so not confident at all. Next game to have a look at is Port Adelaide hosting Geelong. We should have known what was going to happen in this game. They played each other last year in a prelim final at this same ground, and Geelong dismantled them by like 84 points. Geelong dismantled them again. See, 76-point winners. Yes, you heard that right. Geelong absolutely smoked them from pillar to post, mainly in that second half, but I mean, they were the better team by far in this one. There's no doubt about it. Port Adelaide just managed 5 goals in this one, and they get absolutely smoked. Not for the first time this year that they have been smoked by a team, and only kicked like 5 or 6 goals for the match. My votes for this one, for the winning team, Bailey Smith gets another 10. Myers gets 8, which it was probably his best game of the year. Jeremy Cameron gets 6. He had an outstanding second half. No doubt about that. Mark O'Connor, he was really good. Blixarv's in the ruck. He played well. On the other side of the fence, Port Adelaide, it's hard to find good players, I guess, but Ryan Burton, 5. Jace Burgoyne gets the 4. Connor Rose gets 3. Aaliyah gets 2. Sam Powell-Pepper gets the 1. Brownlow votes, I think Jeremy Cameron gets the 3. He ended up with 7 goals, I think. He was really good. Bailey Smith gets the 2. He was outstanding, as he has been most of this season so far. Mark O'Connor, I've given the 1 to, but there's probably 8 other Geelong players that also could well get Brownlow votes in this game. As I said, it was pretty tight in the first half, 3-point margin to Geelong at quarter time. Half-time, it was still only 9 points thanks to a late-ish couple goals to Jeremy Cameron in that second quarter, which just gave them that break of 9 points. But that third quarter, they put them to bed. They kicked 5 goals, 6 did Geelong in the third quarter. Meanwhile, Port Adelaide only managed 1 goal, 3. So kind of at that point, it's over basically. 6 goals at 3-quarter time. And then it just got worse. Jeremy Cameron came out in that last quarter, kicked the first 3 goals of the quarter in about the space of 5 minutes, and she was all over. I mean, it was 36 points at 3-quarter time. It's out to 9 goals at this point. It got worse. There's no doubt about it. It just kept getting worse for them. Jeremy Cameron then ended up kicking the last 2 as well, so he got 5 goals in that last quarter, 2 in the second quarter, so he kicked all 7 goals to the one end. He put them to absolute bed. I know a lot of junk time goals there, but at the same time, someone kicked 7 goals out of their team's 17, outscored the opposition. He was fantastic. He should get Brownlow votes, I think, in my opinion at least. Having a look at some of the stats here, it's going to be one-way traffic. We know that. They absolutely dismantled them. Possession-wise, it was actually pretty similar, but inside 50s, plus 15 for Geelong. Well above their average, well below the average for Port Adelaide. Clearance game, plus 13 for Geelong. They just controlled it, out of the middle, out of everywhere. Port Adelaide have a very good midfield, but they just had no control over getting first hands on the ball here. And Geelong didn't even turn it over that much. Port Adelaide actually had 3 more turnovers than Geelong. it was a low turnover game, but if you're getting the ball out of the centre, you're turning it over less than the opposition. The only way you're going to lose is if you're failing to kick goals. And Geelong managed to kick 17 of them, so it's just one-way traffic, isn't it? Pretty much. What else can we look at from this game? Expected score, no surprise. 29 shots to Geelong to 14 for Port Adelaide. Tells you everything you need to know about this game, I think. Scoring from stoppage, really good from Geelong. 62 to 14, that is an absolute decimation. 62 from stoppage is a very high score from stoppage. Turnover, also really good from Geelong. 52 to 25. Defensive half, Geelong did really well. 37 to 17. Forward half, 65 managed to be scored from Geelong's forward half. Possession gains, which is huge, just 21 for Port Adelaide. It's just across the board, isn't it? Just an absolute decimation of the opposition. There's no two ways about it. Where does this sit, both teams? Port Adelaide now drop way out of contention at the moment. They're 15th on the ladder. They finished second on the ladder last year. This is a drop-off. I know there's a long way to go, but, I mean, and they're on equal wins with 11th, but their percentage is shocking because they keep getting smacked. They're 4 wins, 6 losses. It's a long road back. They're not done yet, but they need to show something. They need to show a lot more than they did on the weekend. Geelong, they're sitting 7th on the ladder. They have good games, they have bad games, but I genuinely think they're one of the best 4 teams when they're playing good football. Unfortunately, they just have these minor slip-ups where they just fall apart a little bit. So they're 7th on the ladder, 6 and 4 after 10 weeks. Really healthy percentage. So they have a massive game this weekend. They're playing the 5th on the ladder, Western Bulldogs. Same wins, slightly less percentage than the Bulldogs. Massive game. It's down at the Cattery. I'm trying to think. I can't remember both if they played twice last year or not, but they played definitely at Adelaide Oval in Gather Round last year, and that was an absolute cracker. Libba and Bont were superb and tried their best to carry Bulldogs over the line, but Geelong managed to win it. But this Bulldogs midfield is flying at the moment. They're coming off a really good win, which we'll get to in a second. So that is a huge game for Geelong. Down at the Cattery, they haven't had the best success there this year, but we'll see how this one goes. That is definitely a must-watch game. Thursday night football, probably match of the round right there. So tune into that one. Meanwhile, as we mentioned, Port Adelaide go to Fremantle. Tough game. They managed to win over there against them last year. They need to again. If they lose this one, especially if they get pumped, they're going to stay 15th on the ladder and only have, well, at the moment, they've only got Richmond, North Melbourne and West Coast behind them. Richmond are only a game behind Port Adelaide after 10 weeks. Who saw that coming? What is going on in Port Adelaide? I know Hinkley's in his last season, but will he see it out? Who knows at the moment, but geez Louise, they need to find something. There's no doubt about that. Moving into the only Saturday night fixture from this week was Western Bulldogs Essendon, and this was another one-way traffic game. Essendon only managed 5 goals. The Bulldogs kicked 18-19, 127. They absolutely decimated them by 91 points. The Bulldogs are flying. They've had a couple massive wins already this year. They smoked Port Adelaide a couple weeks ago. Now they smoke Essendon. They're flying. The best players, there were so many good players. MVP votes, I've gone Libba 10, Bontempelli 8. Bailey Dale gets 6, even though he had 49 touches. Probably, in a lot of people's eyes, deserves 10, but that's the rating system. James Harms 4 and Riley West 2. Over at Essendon Land, Nick Martin 5, Sam Durham 4, Mason Redmond 3, Will Sutterfield 2, Xavier Dersma 1. Do anyone from Essendon deserve votes, though? In all honesty, it was a tough watch for them. Brownlow votes, there's a lot of players that could get votes here. Bailey Dale, I think, will get the 3 from the umpires. They will have known that he got like 49 touches. It was flashed on the screen at the ground all night long. Tom Liberatore, he was outstanding. I think Riley West kicked 4 in the end. He was really good in the forward line. He deserves votes. But then there's players like Bontempelli and plenty of other midfielders that also got big numbers. So there's plenty of options on who the votes go to. I think it goes Bailey Dale, Tom Liberatore and Riley West. Though, first quarter, it was slow to start. It took almost halfway through the first quarter for the first goal to be kicked. But then it went bang, bang, bang. Bulldogs managed to kick 7 goals in the last 20 minutes of the quarter. Essendon did not score a goal until the 17-minute mark of the second quarter. They were down 68-9 at halftime. It didn't get better, really, at any point. They managed to kick 2 goals in a row late in the third quarter to get it back to 75 points at three-quarter time. But yeah, it's just one-way traffic all night long. Bulldogs kicked 7 goals, 3 in the first, 3-5 in the second, 5-5 in the third, and then 3 goals, 6 in the last. So it was just consistent decimation the whole way through this one. A look at some of the stats. Not going to surprise you here with anything because Bulldogs dominated it. They go plus 80 disposals. They go plus 24 in inside 50s. Plus 8 in clearances, which they were level in centre clearances. Well, Essendon actually won centre clearances by 1. Turnover game, Bulldogs plus 9 in intercepts on Essendon, which is ridiculous numbers when you're also having 80 extra disposals. So Bombers just couldn't look after the ball. Meanwhile, the Bulldogs just did whatever they wanted. They had 112 marks for the match. They had 21 marks inside 50. Low tackle game, low pressure game, and Essendon just didn't have an answer. For whatever reason, they just did not have an answer. A look at some of the other things here. Shots at goal, isn't going to surprise you, but Bulldogs had a massive 40 shots on goal in this one. Meanwhile, Essendon only managed 16, so that just shows you where this one's at. Scoring from stoppages, Bulldogs plus 30 there. Massive scoring there, but it was the turnover game. 82 they scored from the turnover this game. Meanwhile, Essendon just managed 22. And all the scoring came from the forward half for the Doggies. 11, 13, 79 from forward half to the Bombers 2, 4, 16. It was just absolute control of the ground. They didn't let the Bombers get it out, and they just made use of it. And it was a fantastic all-round performance from the Bulldogs. I don't know what to say about the Bombers, in all honesty. I know they're young. I know there's a lot of inexperience in this team, but they just didn't look good. And even some of their more senior players just could not find their way into this game at all. You look at, obviously their best player, Zach Merritt, really struggled to have much influence on this game. And just, you wonder where they're at, because they showed some good signs over the last 5 weeks, I know, against lower ranked teams, but they didn't show anything here against the Doggies. Are the Doggies that good? Maybe. Or is it the Bombers just are that bad? Who knows? Where does that put both teams? Doggies into 5th on the ladder. They're 6 and 4 with a really healthy percentage. Meanwhile, for the Bombers, they've played one less game than everyone else, and they're still sitting 10th on the ladder. They're 5 and 4 after 9 games. Really poor percentage for them, no doubt about that. They're down to one of the lower 5 or 6 in percentages, but they're not completely out of the question. If they go out and they've got Dreamtime at the G this weekend, Friday night against Richmond, they win that, which they should, in all honesty, do. I'm not saying it will be a win, but if they do win that one, they're 6 and 4 after 10 weeks and biting on the heels of the top 8. That's crazy. it's going to take a big effort to come back from what they did on the weekend, though. So, yeah, that's Dreamtime at the G Friday night. That will be a good game to watch. Who knows who will win that one. Meanwhile, Bulldogs, they're 5th on the ladder. They're going to be going up against, as I said, Geelong, who are 7th on the ladder. Huge win for either team there. Potentially jumping into the top 4 for the winner, with Hawthorn, Brisbane playing each other. If Hawthorn go down in that one, then the winner of Geelong and Bulldogs will jump above Hawthorn in all likelihood. So, potentially a top 4 spot on the line here. Massive game for Bulldogs and for Geelong. Moving on to Sunday football, it was led off with Richmond, North Melbourne. It was close. There's no two ways about it. It was at the MCG. The Kangaroos get it 12-6-78 to 11-8-74. They win their first game at the MCG in like 8 years or something ridiculous. They only play 1 or 2 a year at the G, to be fair, but it's been a long time coming. They led most of the way. They dominated the first quarter. Richmond dominated the second quarter to get themselves back in it. And there was a bit of an arm wrestle. Both teams kind of had their chances. Certainly Richmond late in the game just couldn't get one through the big sticks. But it ends up with the Kangaroos getting the win by, 4 points in the end. So Richmond playing a lot of tight games, as are Kangaroos over the last month or so. Vote-wise, for the winning team, I've gone Tristan Cherry. He was huge. Massive tackle numbers in this game. We'll get to them in shortly. Massive tackle numbers. Colby McKercher, 8. Luke Davies-Yanaki, 6. Tom Powell, 4. Cameron Zerha gets the 2. For the Richmond Tigers, funny that it's a ruckman for both teams gets top, but you can't go past them. They just were involved in everything. 5 for him, 4 for Seth Campbell, 3 for Tim Taranto, 2 for Jack Ross, and 1 for Jacob Hopper. Votes in the Brownlow. Tristan Cherry, I think, has to get the 3. Colby McKercher played his best game of the year. I've given him 2. Tim Taranto getting 1 because he had like 30-odd touches. He was very important in this game. Could have won the game, but kicked it behind with about 4 minutes to go. And yeah, that's a wrap on that one. The stats for this game, pretty level. +4 inside 50s for Richmond. So just a few wasted chances there. Clearances was an absolute domination by the Kangaroos. There were a lot of stoppages in this game. Like a lot. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was non-stop stoppages, especially in that first half. But Kangaroos go 54 clearances for the match to 33 for Richmond. They dominated them. +10 centre clearances and +11 stoppage clearances. Dominated contested football, whereas Richmond looked after the uncontested side. Turnover numbers is insane here. +16 Kangaroos had there, so not a good result there for Kangaroos. They could not look after the ball, whereas Richmond set their season best in turnovers at 47. So really good performance from Richmond at looking after the football. As I said, tackles were quite outrageous, 92 apiece. In that first half, it was extraordinary how many tackles there were. There was, in the end, 6 players that had 10 tackles or more in this match. Nankervis, 13, Tristan Cherry, 12, Jack Ross, 11, Wardlaw, Sheasel, and Colby McKercher all had 10 each. That's insane numbers. A look at a few other things for this game. Shots ends up being Richmond 23, North Melbourne 21, which, as you would expect, probably puts Richmond at the expected score winner in this game. Only narrowly, but does put them slightly ahead there. North Melbourne dominated stoppages, scored well from stoppages. Richmond dominated clearances, didn't quite score as much as perhaps they should have. Not clearances, from turnover, sorry. Only kicking 4 goals, 8 to North Melbourne's 4-2, so some wasted opportunities there. Defensive half scoring was very similar. Forward half was better for Richmond. North Melbourne did manage 2 goals, 2 from centre bounce, whereas Richmond did not score from the centre bounce. Obviously, both these teams neither are expected to do too much for the rest of the season, but that does get North Melbourne up to 2.5 wins, sitting 17th on the ladder. Meanwhile, Richmond are 3 wins for the season, sitting 16th on the ladder. You'd imagine both teams are going to end up bottom 3. It's just a matter of whether North can get to their par score of about 6 wins for the season. You'd have to think maybe they're on track for that now. Richmond probably already gone above what pre-season we expected from them. So, yeah, that'd be happy. I mean, losing a close game is never easy, but there's worse things that could have happened. Here, obviously Richmond go into Dreamtime at the G this week against the Bombers, who were ordinary last week. So you never know. Maybe it is a chance for Richmond to get another one here. And North Melbourne have Saturday night against Collingwood at Marvel Stadium. Massive game for them, as we mentioned earlier when talking about Collingwood. It's a massive opportunity after what happened last year. They'll be fired up to come out and win this game. So they've played a lot of close games recently. They're playing a lot better football than they did early season. So not writing them off either in that game. 2 games left. They're both upsets as well, surprisingly. Brisbane, Melbourne. This was up at the Gabba. Weird sort of game, this one. One of the weirder ones. We've got, Brisbane losing it 13-10-88 to Melbourne 14-15-99. Melbourne in a little bit of form. Brisbane led most of the way in this game. Late in the first quarter, they did some damage to go out by 17 points at quarter time. Half-time, they're still 13 points up and looking reasonably comfortable. 3-quarter time, they're still 14 points up and looking reasonably comfortable. Melbourne took until the 9-minute mark of the final quarter to get that goal in that last quarter, but from that point on, they kicked 4 in a row to get out comfortably. Brisbane did kick one back. Looked like maybe they could potentially get another couple here and there, but in the end, Melbourne deserved this win. They win it by 11 points. Unbelievable. Votes in this one, Max Gawn. He's putting together a season. He was a bit slow early days. Didn't quite get his season off flying. But boy, is he flying now. He's played really good over the last 4 to 5 weeks. He gets 10. Oliver played maybe his best game of the year. 8. Trent Rivers 6. Pickett 4. Christian Petrarca with 2. On the other side of the fence, Zach Bailey was really good in this game. 5. Lockie Neal 4. Will Ashcroft 3. Jasper Fletcher 2. Hugh McCluggage 1. Brownlow votes Max Gawn 3. Because he Pickett 2. Zach Bailey 1. Plenty of players, other players could get votes, but that's the way I see it. Melbourne won inside 50 count, +5. That doesn't happen against Brisbane too often, so that just shows how they shut down that Brisbane game. Brisbane usually get really good high inside 50 numbers and don't convert it too much. That didn't happen here. They were below average on inside 50s, whereas Melbourne were well above, so outstanding performance from Melbourne there. Clearances +5 in favour of Melbourne. Really dominated the centre clearances, dominated the contested possessions as well. Not an easy thing to do against Brisbane. A lot of hard bodies that win that contested football for Brisbane, but Melbourne just beat them at their own game in that regard. Fantastic performance there. Shots at goal. Melbourne had 4 extra shots in this one. 33-29, so probably deserved winner no matter what way you look at it in this one, I think. Scoring from stoppages was pretty similar, 36-34 in favour of Melbourne. It was the turnover game though, 62-48 in favour of Melbourne. Brisbane transitioned it really well from the back line, which is what they do when they're looking at their best. They did score 58 from the back line, but it was what Melbourne did in that forward half. When they got possession in the forward half, they scored 62 of their 99 points, whereas Brisbane only managed 16 from their forward half. So just controlled that area of the game, and that's what wins them this match. Look at where we are with both of these teams. Melbourne go to 4-6. All of a sudden, they're a chance. I'm thinking about putting up a video this week on my YouTube channel, so go check that one out. All Aussie rules on Melbourne, because some of the similarities to Hawthorn from last year are starting to mount, I think. So we're just going to have a little look at that, I think. Hopefully, if I can put it together in time. So yeah, they're 4 and 6 after 10 weeks, whereas Brisbane dropped down to second on the ladder, still really healthy spot. 8 wins and a draw from 10 games. No, 7 wins and a draw, sorry, from 10 games. Still really healthy spot, but these losses stacking up. They're still a long way ahead of where they were this time last year, but they won't want to be losing too many more of these sort of games at the Gabba. This weekend, Brisbane obviously travelled down to Melbourne to play Hawthorn. That's a really tough matchup. It's a huge game. They play MCG okay, Brisbane, so I wouldn't rule them out. They obviously won the grand final there last year. They also played a couple other decent games. I think they nearly beat Collingwood down there last year as well. So, yeah, I'm not writing them off. It's going to be a tough game for them, though. And Melbourne have Sydney also at the MCG on Sunday in what is a huge game. If Melbourne win that one, all of a sudden, finals is well and truly back on the cards for the Demons, whereas and it might be season over for Sydney. Losers going to have a lot of hard work because their percentages aren't great. There's a long season to go, but it's an important game for both teams. There's no doubt about that. One game left to look at before we get into how my tipping went and the Brownlow and MVP leaderboards. And it was West Coast hosting St Kilda, and the Eagles get their first win of the season. Finally, it took to round 10, but they got it. 16-12, 108, 12-8, 80. They won by 28 points. They absolutely deserved this one. They were by far the better team on this field. They looked better from the start. 4 goals to 2 in the first quarter. Kicked another 3 goals to 2 in the second quarter. Kicked another 3 goals to 2 in the third quarter. And then finished with a shootout in the last quarter. 6 goals apiece for both teams. But it was damage done. 28-point winners for the Eagles. MVP votes. I've gone Matt Flynn 10, Jack Graham 8, Brady Howe 6, Harley Reid 4. He played maybe his best game of the year. Liam Baker 2 for the Saints. Rowan Marshall 5, Callum Wilkie 4, Jack Sinclair 3, Jack Steele 2, Jack McRae 1, Jack Higgins was probably next best. Brownlow votes, I think this is the hardest game I've had this year, I think, to decide on who gets Brownlow votes. I don't know, in all honesty. I've gone Brady Howe just because. Rowan Marshall was absolutely outstanding, especially in that first quarter, and Jack Sinclair. I don't know who's going to get votes. It could go anyone from either team. Who would know? But West Coast were definitely the better team here. I look at some of the stats. St Kilda dominated possession, but just did nothing with it. What are you doing, Ross Lyon? I'm sick of this from St Kilda. I could not support this team. What are they doing? They get so much of the football and do nothing with it. Plus 50 disposals for 5 less inside 50s. Just move the ball forward. Like, honestly, it's not working, Ross. Do something. Plus 7 clearances for St Kilda. You lost by 28 points. Come on. They were good in contested football. Don't get me wrong. That plus 14. But do something with it. When you've got the 221 uncontested possessions and you had 54 inside 50s. Just move the ball forward. Do something. Yeah. Anyway, that's my little gripe for the day. Just at Ross, the boss, and St Kilda. Shots, West Coast 31, St Kilda 23. Clear domination. Scoring from stoppages, 40-24 in favour of West Coast. Scoring from turnover, 68-50 in favour of West Coast. No surprise there. The stoppage one's the surprising one because St Kilda did dominate stoppages, but they just didn't move the ball at all. Forward half scoring was the West Coast way of winning this one. 62-34. That's the difference right there. Put that in your book. Forward half scoring. West Coast got it done. St Kilda just couldn't stop it. Yeah. That basically wraps up that game. West Coast get their first win of the year. They're 1-9. They, in all honesty, looking like wooden spooners right now. They could still catch Richmond. I can't see them get it going above North Melbourne. Depending, if Richmond win another couple games, it'll be too tough, I reckon. I can see West Coast getting 3 or 4 for the season. So as long as Richmond don't win 2 more, they're a chance. Meanwhile, St Kilda, is that season done? It's looking a lot like it. They started the season okay. I think they won 3 games out of their first 4 or 5. They're now at the point where they're 4 and 6, and it's too many bad losses. Too many bad losses. I think, in all honesty, I see them in the bottom 4 teams, maybe bottom 5 if they're lucky. Teams below them at the moment, Melbourne and Port Adelaide. Melbourne definitely are playing a lot better football than St Kilda right now, so I can see Melbourne going above them. I could even see Port Adelaide going above them. I know Port aren't playing great, but yeah, she's a rough time for St Kilda. So St Kilda will be hosting Gold Coast at Marvel Stadium Sunday evening game. I mean, it's against Gold Coast, who last year didn't travel well. They've travelled pretty well this year, but they have lost at Marvel Stadium this year, so it's not against all odds that St Kilda win that one, but it won't be an easy game, there's no doubt that. And West Coast, they're heading to Adelaide. That's going to be a tough game. I can't see them winning that one at all. I just can't see it. So that's all 9 matches from the weekend. We'll jump into my tips. We'll try and get through this last little bit quickly. It was a rough weekend, in all honesty. This is not how my actual tips went. I actually got 6 out of 9 because I ended up changing one of them. So Gold Coast, we got that right. Sydney, we got that right. Pretty close to the margins in both of those. Same with Collingwood. Actual margin was 10. So pretty good margins in all 3 of them. GWS lost to Fremantle, which I stuck with. Most people probably got that one wrong, so I'm not too mad about that one. The Port Adelaide one I did end up swapping to Geelong. So I luckily did change that. I don't know why I thought Port Adelaide would win that one, but that one was a bad one on the last week's episode. Bulldogs, they won comfortably, a lot more comfortably than that. North Melbourne just got over the line, and we got both of the upsets on Sunday afternoon wrong. We went 5 of 9, which has us 58 out of 89 for the season at 65.17%. A look now at our Brownlow leaderboard after round 10, and there it is. Jordan Dawson on top with 15. He was my tip for the Brownlow last year in 2024, and he let me down, and I was so sad, so I didn't go back to him, even though I love that guy. He's currently leading it at 15. A year too late for me, though. Andrew Brayshaw and Bailey Smith both on 13. Isaac Rankin on 12. Caleb Sarong, Jai Newcomb, Max Gawn, Connor Rose, Tom Liberatore, all on 11 votes after 10 games. And then Lachie Neale, Hugh McCluggage, and Zach Merritt on 10 to sit in the top 10. That is the top 10 in my Brownlow so far this year. The leaderboard, as we've seen throughout the episode, winning team goes 10-8-6-4-2 for the top 5 players. Losing team goes 5-4-3-2-1 for the top 5 players. And this is how it shakes up so far after 10 matches this season. Obviously, Gold Coast have played one less game, as have Essendon, so Noah Anderson right in the hunt. Bailey Smith leads it, though. He's on 56. Andrew Brayshaw in second on 53. Tristan Cherry on 52.5. Max Gawn on 50. Connor Rose, 49. As I said, Noah Anderson right in the hunt, 48. One less game. 47.5 for Hugh McCluggage. 46 for Steele Sidebottom. 45 for George Hewitt, who has been outstanding for Carlton. Matt Rowell gets 44. Caleb Sarong, 43 with Jack Sinclair. And Tom Liberatore also on 43. Chad Warner, 42. Lachie Neale, 41. That is your top 15 in the MVP so far this year. That is a wrap on everything we've got to say this week in our review episode. Don't forget, we do 2 episodes every single week. This is the review episode, goes live every Monday And then we've got our preview episode that goes live Thursday morning at about 6 a.m. every single week. So check that out before this weekend's actions. We'll be going through all 9 matches coming up this weekend. So go check that out. Don't forget to check out the socials. Plenty of stuff on the Insta, Twitter, TikTok. Every day we're TikToking. So go check them all out. All Aussie rules everywhere. This podcast goes live YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I appreciate you for being here. I hope that you enjoy the content. I try to be your one-stop shop for all football content. So check it out. All Aussie rules everywhere. I'm Jay. This has been another episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. I'll catch you on the next one.